YouTube, what's happening? Jason coming at you. This is October 30th. This is gonna be my real first official video where I'm actually talking about sports today. Sorry for the late update. I've been trying to actually put out a video all throughout the week, but just you know how life goes. Got a bit distracted, wasn't able to concentrate on the video editing, and just didn't get around to it. But I'm gonna try my best to kind of stay focused with it for Sundays. I'm actually gonna create this segment called Jay's Sundays Updates. So Sunday's a day where you can hit up my channel and you can see like my new video or videos. I might upload one, I might upload a few, depending on basically how the week goes. If I'm unable to upload anything in the middle of the week, I'll probably just come back to Sunday and just kind of just flood my channel with some new content. But yeah, with that being said, I'm just gonna hop right into it. First thing I'm kind of just gonna break down to you guys is I had my fantasy draft this week. I'm in 2 fantasy basketball leagues, but for this channel, I'm basically gonna focus on just the one that I had the lower draft pick. So one of my fantasy basketball leagues, I was lucky enough to end up with the number 1 overall pick. And as much as I would like to break down that team to you guys because it's a really good team, I'm gonna kind of just stay away from analyzing that team and talking about that team just because it's for me it's very easy to kind of construct a really good team with a high draft pick. So I feel like I had to put a little bit more thought into my secondary team. That league, I believe I had the 5th overall draft pick, and I was able to use that 5th pick and create quite an impressive team. Excuse me, sorry about that. So without kind of boring you guys about just the process of the draft and so on and so forth, I'm just gonna tell you the players that I ended up with, because I ended up with a roster that could really be competitive this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing if I could turn this team into a champion as opposed to the other one where I got the number 1 pick. So without further ado, let's get into it. With the first pick that I had in that draft was Damian Lillard. I had the number 5 pick and I used it on Damian Lillard. In the 2nd round, I chose Kyrie Irving. 3rd round, I chose Al Horford. 4th round, DeAndre Jordan. 5th round, Devin Booker. 6th round, Rudy Gay. 7th round, Jabari Parker. 8th round, Dwight Howard. 9th round, Reggie Jackson. 10th round, Aaron Gordon. 11th round, Steven Adams. 12th round, Tyreek Evans. And then in the 13th and final round, I chose Marvin Williams. Now, what was kind of going through my mind as the draft was playing out, just to kind of get you guys into my head in terms of like what the thought process was with creating a team like this, is once the best players, in my opinion, were drafted in the 1st round, which were James Harden, Russell Westbrook, of course. I started thinking, you know what, I want to build, this is good, now that those 2 guys are off the table and I don't have the pressure of going after the absolute fantasy MVP, I can play around and make a team that's more towards my liking, more of my favorite players, with a combination of, guys that I really enjoy watching play, as well as guys who I know are obviously going to produce, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to win. So Damian Lillard was the first pick that I had, and the logic behind Damian Lillard was that I feel he's top 3 to top 5 point guards in the NBA. And recently, I've really got to understand that the NBA is really changed drastically, to the point where we now need guard play to dictate success for your franchise, as opposed to that established 7-foot big man who you used to pass the ball to down low and you expect to get easy buckets for you. Guard play has been the way of the NBA for now, pretty much since Steph Curry kind of broke out with his MVP. It was gradually getting there, but it seemed to just switch overnight once Steph Curry was able to prove that you could win MVP by having great guard skills, shooting the ball well, handling the ball well, dishing it out to teammates, etc. They're now the leaders of your team. Most of the teams in the NBA that are higher in the standings are usually led by a point guard or a shooting guard. And that's not a coincidence. There are a lot of teams in the NBA right now who have a lot of dominant guards. So I kind of just this fantasy team that I had, I just kind of really put myself in the seat of a GM. How would I build a team that is dominant, that could be dominant in real life as well as dominant in fantasy league? So that was my rationale behind Damian Lillard. I think he's got a good chance to win MVP. The Portland Trailblazers are getting better year by year. It's a very young team, and he's a lot of the reason because of it. Because he has been able to not only elevate his game to the point where you have to respect him as a top 5 point guard in the NBA, but he's able to bring along a young team a lot faster than most people expected. Last year, we saw the emergence of CJ McCollum, and he's often given credit to Damian Lillard being a mentor to him and basically telling him how to prepare in the offseason and just giving him his vote of confidence, saying that you and I in the backcourt together, we could take charge in the Western Conference and we shouldn't be afraid of anybody. So that kind of confidence and that kind of attitude and that kind of competitive spirit is really what encouraged me to draft Damian Lillard first overall. So the other guys that are on my team from that point, I chose Kyrie Irving for a similar reason to Damian Lillard. I feel that, well, after what Kyrie did last year in the finals, we definitely saw that he is someone that you have to respect as a top 5 point guard in the NBA. So I felt that if I could have him and Damian Lillard being my two top picks and essentially being the core of my fantasy team, I can't go wrong. I feel like it's gonna come down to 4 point guards in my opinion who are gonna win MVP in the actual NBA season, and maybe in the fantasy season as well. And that's only because they classify James Harden as a point guard in fantasy basketball while I'm talking about point guards like that. So aside from Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, of course, and as I previously mentioned, James Harden. The other name that I'm forgetting out right now is Russell Westbrook. He's another guy who's going to be contending for MVP in terms of fantasy and as well as an actual real life. So I like Kyrie Irving. I feel he's going to be the reason the Cavaliers get to the finals again this year. LeBron James is getting up there in age, and with the mileage on his body and the minutes that he's played throughout his 13-year NBA career, he's now going to be deferring to Kyrie a lot more this year and basically giving Kyrie the opportunity to win his first MVP and really have his imprint and create the opportunity for him to be a leader as well on that team. With my third pick, it's slipping my mind. It was DeAndre Jordan. At this point in the draft, I was basically saying that I'm a little bit too small up with my team, drafting 2 point guards back to back, and the best big, in my opinion, that was left on the board at that time was DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan is coming off of a monstrous year in which he was able to average a double-double last year. So I knew for sure I was going to get my rebounds with DeAndre, and whatever he was willing to give me offensively, I would have taken it in stride. I was a little bit alarmed by the fact that he is a very poor free throw shooter. But nonetheless, I felt that the rebound production, the block shots, of course, and the occasional 12 to 15 points per game isn't going to hurt me. And I had enough to get by with his poor free throw shooting numbers. On to the next. After that, I decided to go with Rudy Gay in the 4th round, I believe. Rudy Gay is in a contract year, and that was something that I took into consideration when I did draft him. I do often look at what players are in their walk years, just because history has shown that has been motivation for players to come and have big years. Everyone's trying to get paid, especially now in today's NBA with the salary cap keep on getting higher and higher and higher and higher. We're seeing guys like Mike Conley and DeMar DeRozan cash in on contracts that are north of $140 million. A player like Rudy Gay, who is consistently averaging between 18 and 20 points per game in his career, is definitely going to sustain that level of success because he's trying to get paid. So I'm even banking on him having a breakout year and averaging a little bit more north of 20 points per game, just because obviously more points on the board means more dollars in your account, and that's what these guys play for. Aside from a championship, they play to keep getting them checks. Shout out to my boy Jalen Rose. Keep getting them checks. I drafted Al Horford after that, just because of the same reason that I drafted DeAndre Jordan the round before. I needed some size for my team. My team is incredibly small because I'm going to be relying on a lot of production from my point guards and my wing players. So I'm just looking for bigs who have a certain niche. Just guys who could dominate in any specific category. DeAndre Jordan's going to dominate in rebounds and block shots. I feel Al Horford is the same kind of player. He's going to dominate with rebounds and block shots. So basically, my team isn't at a disadvantage overall numbers in terms of getting rebounds and block shots and other statistics that big men usually dominate in. Field goal percentage, of course. These two bigs are now on my team to overcompensate for the shortcomings of Damian Lillard and Kyrie Irving. I did go back to the guards after that. I went and I did reach a little bit high for him, but that's because I have high hopes for Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. Last year, at about just around and after the All-Star break, Devin Booker had a coming out party. I'm not sure if for those of you who don't follow basketball as much as I do, the Phoenix Suns were a very bad team, so they didn't really get a whole lot of publicity. They didn't get a whole lot of national televised games, but while all of us were sleeping on the Phoenix Suns, there was a player by the name of Devin Booker who was lights out. He was, in most people's opinion, runner-up for Rookie of the Year behind Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. And that's due to the fact that he took full advantage of Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight getting injured. And that's one of the biggest keys to winning in fantasy basketball, is knowing who is the right man to step up and replace injured players. Last year, Phoenix's backcourt looked nothing like it did at the beginning of the year, and Devin Booker was the only reason they were able to be a respectable competitive team night in, night out. He was giving them to over 20 points per game. He was shooting a high clip from the three-point arc. And threes are a very big statistic in fantasy basketball. They give you points for not only making the three-point shot, but an additional point for the degree of difficulty of the fact that you're shooting it from a further distance. So Devin Booker was just my high ceiling pick, a guy that I'm hoping could reach his full potential early in his career. This way I could kind of just say I told y'all and reap the benefits of a young player who is definitely on a fast track to success in the NBA. The remainder of my team is kind of fluctuated a little bit in the last couple of days, and that's just due to the fact that you have to constantly be updating your team on a night basis if you have thoughts about winning. I did have guys on my team such as Tyreek Evans and Marvin Williams, but those are just average role players. I drafted those players in the draft just because they showed in the past that they have certain skill sets that when they are healthy and when they are playing well, that they execute. Marvin Williams is a guy who is usually reliable for rebounding, and he shoots a decent percentage from the three. So I was hoping that he would be productive early on in the season and giving me those two statistics. I've since then replaced them with a new addition, and that also goes for Tyreek Evans. Tyreek Evans was replaced on my team not because he was playing poorly, but just because he's injured, and he's always injured. Year in and year out, Tyreek Evans has failed to play 82 games or even 70 games for that matter, so he comes with a very big red flag. He's a high risk, high reward player, which means when he is healthy, he is giving you a lot of bang for your buck, because not a lot of he's usually lingering on waiver wires, or he's just never drafted, and that's fair. That's fair game because of the fact that his health is a concern. But when he is healthy, he does produce fantasy numbers, and I was banking on his health paying off for me, and he would be able to give me some points, some assists, some rebounds, and just give me a little bit of everything. But I got impatient. I know he's probably eventually going to come back healthy. He's going to have good stretches of the year, but I'm not banking on him being a reliable fantasy option throughout the full season. So since I drafted him, I've made up my mind that it's probably best to go with another player. I'm going to get into the other players that I picked up in a minute. I just want to kind of keep it all together and just talk about my players you should kind of keep an eye on to help your fantasy cause throughout the year. your key additions, surprise players, all that's coming up in a few minutes. As soon as I kind of just give you a firm analysis of the remainder of my team. Dwight Howard was also picked up in the middle tier of my draft for similar reasons as Al Horford and DeAndre Jordan. I needed a big man who could get me rebounds, get me block shots, and that could overcompensate for the guards and the wings that I have on my team. And Dwight Howard has been consistently in the top 10 in rebounds as long as he's healthy for the last decade. So he was sitting around in the draft lobby for quite a bit, and I said, you know what? He fits my team. Let's go with him. So with that being said, let me get into my weekly additions. This is my recommendation for anyone, you guys, who is out here trying to win fantasy basketball or try to, obviously, everyone's trying to win in fantasy basketball. But what I mean to say is for anyone who's trying to remain competitive from beginning to the end and who needs a player to compensate for an injury, or you're dissatisfied with a player you drafted and you're looking for a new addition. Here are 3 players that I've kind of kept track of this week who you should be targeting for your fantasy league. First of all is TJ Warren of the Phoenix Suns, Will Barton of the Denver Nuggets, and Tim Frazier of the New Orleans Pelicans. All 3 of those players are having phenomenal starts to their 2016-2017 NBA season. TJ Warren is the small forward for the Phoenix Suns. He just seems to really just come into this season in shape. Phoenix, obviously, after losing a lot of their key players to injuries last year, they knew that they had to focus more on their conditioning and being able to sustain themselves throughout the course of an 82-game season. And TJ Warren, being one of their young players and trying to form a young core in Phoenix, said to himself that I have to step my game up. I have to make sure that I am in shape, I am healthy, and I'm ready to contribute for my team. So he is taking advantage of the opportunity been given to him early in the season, and right now he's paying off for anyone who has him on their fantasy team, not to mention his actual real-life NBA franchise. Will Barton is someone who is a little bit familiar to people who do play fantasy basketball. He has been a streaky player in the past. I actually had Will Barton through periods of the season last year on my fantasy team. He is an asset more times than not, just due to the fact that when he is given playing time, when he is given the opportunity to play in Denver, he usually takes advantage of it. He's someone who you can rely on to get you double digits in points. He gives you a fair share amount of rebounds for his position, and he's a ball dominant player. So the ball's often being put in his hands, and he is often been given the responsibility to distribute, shoot, most basketball responsibilities. So Will Barton has been given the reins early on in the season, as he was last year, and he's been given the green light. So he's taking his shots, and right now he's making them. So that makes him an asset. The last but not least is Tim Frazier, the point guard for the New Orleans Pelicans. Tim Frazier is a beneficiary of Tyreke Evans and Jrue Holiday being injured initially to start the season for the New Orleans Pelicans. Right now, their depth at point guard is very thin, and due to not having a lot of depth, he's been given north of like 30 minutes per game, which is a lot, which is, close to 3/4 of an NBA game. So with that being said, and as a point guard, the ball is in his hands a lot. He's on the court a lot. And good things are going to happen when you have the ball in your hands and when you're on the court a lot. So he's picking up a lot of assists just based off of the volume of the ball being in his hands a lot. He's scoring a respectable amount, and enough to kind of just give you a little bit of a shot in the arm if you don't have the best point guards in the world right now.